Pablo, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? JP, good to see you as well. Evening, brother. How you doing? How you been? Evening, Miles, CMF. Tall, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Evening, Miles, CMF peeps. How's it going? How's your day, Miles? Joe, good to see you as well. How you doing, Joe? How you been? Good evening, Miles, CMF family. Funky brother, good to see you as well. How you doing? I missed the show. Yes. Good evening, Miles and CMF family. I missed the show yesterday as I was at a wedding. Okay, funky brother. Hope everything went great. We had a good time, brother. Oh no. Okay, for some reason the comment section isn't working. Oh, here you go. Did I miss much as I did not have the time to catch up? On yesterday's live, we talked about some essentially market perspectives. We talked about the Fed on yesterday's live. We talked about the PPI data. We also talked about how Bitcoin isn't going to be purchased by the United States, even though they claim 5% supply was going to be brought out. We talked about some Ripple news. We're going to expand their footprint. We talked about essentially Citigroup Bank also expanding their footprint inside the crypto space. So quite bit of news we talked about in yesterday's live. Hi, Miles, CMF family. Let's go for the facts news. Let's go, Carl. Hi, Miles. T, good to see you as well. How you doing? Good evening, Miles and CMF. How you doing? I'm doing great, Carlos. Good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? So, let's do the intro disclaimer. And by that time, everyone's tuned in for the first part of the live. And today is the day with Trump having a sit down with Putin in Alaska, out of all places. Welcome to the CMF live show. If you're watching this for the first time ever, the CMF stands for Crypto Miles Family. My name is Miles. You can tune to this live Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. London time onwards for the most latest news on cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, and regulations. Pretty much everything you need to know about regarding the world completely transforming into a digital space. The disclaimer of this live, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. And we do Q&As on this live as well, which means if you ever do have any questions, put it down inside the comment section. More than happy to read it out and help you out. Now, on tonight's live, we're going to be talking about, also just want to say, thank you so much to everybody who has already liked and retweeted this live on X. If you watch us on XCMF members, thank you so much for everyone who's liked and retweeted this live. If you watch us on YouTube, thank you so much to everyone who's also liked the live as well. If you haven't liked or retweeted, please like and retweet the live show now. If you haven't, if you have, thank you so much. And this is also episode essentially 356 of the CMF live. Now, on tonight's live, we're going to talk about essentially Trump and Putin meeting together and what essentially possible discussions could be happening between them. We're going to go through on tonight's live also some perspective news. We're going to go through some Fed news on tonight's live as well. Apparently, the Fed has decided to remove a certain regulation that essentially stopped banks from working with crypto companies. Even though Jerome Powell isn't doing rate cuts, at least he's doing something good for the crypto space. We're going to talk about the SEC chairman, essentially Atkins, and his recent movements inside the crypto space. We're going to talk about what's happening inside the World Economic Forum. We're also going to go through news on tonight's live regarding essentially betting that's going on. The market is about to go on the upside, $100 million to be fairly honest. We're also going to talk about tonight's live regarding rate cuts and what's the possibility essentially, of the outcomes that's going to be happening, a negative outcome that's going to be happening on rate cuts regarding stablecoins like Tether and USDC. We're also going to go through news on tonight's live regarding another Fed perspective on rate cuts. We're going to talk about PUTIS on tonight's live also. We're going to go through essentially Mike Novoscott news, the CEO and founder essentially of Galaxy Digital, and his recent movements. He's a very big Bitcoin advocate, but has decided to take a different route this time around. We're going to go through some Ripple news on tonight's essentially live as well as usual. But the first news we're going to go through on tonight's live is regarding Trump and Putin. In other words, what's going to be happening there? Are we going to get essentially the war coming to an end mainly, which is better for the people because both sides, essentially no war would be so much better for the people, but also the market could essentially relax a bit regarding no more wars. So, before we go through the first news regarding Trump and Putin, let's just go one more time inside the comment section, and we go straight into the first news and back to the comment section. So let's see where we were at Good day, Miles. Mike, good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? Hi, Miles. Richard, good to see you as well. How you doing? Good evening, Miles and CMF. Orphan, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Sub CMF, thank God Trump won. Crypto Miles, let's go, Davey. Good evening, Miles and family. Ian, good to see you as well. How you doing? Today is honestly a landmark day. Trump and essentially and Putin coming together. It's an absolute landmark day. But you know, some people will see it as bad news for some reason. Well, the people that might see it as bad news are the Democratic politicians, personally people like essentially Senator Elizabeth Warren or essentially Walkers, Maxine Waters, and so on. They don't like anything Trump does that's positive, to be fairly honest. Now, Trump-Putin summit reshapes international relations right now. The arrival of President Putin in Alaska sets the stage for discussions that could redefine the relationship between two of the world's most influential, essentially, nations right now. This Trump, essentially, and Putin summit is more than just a meeting. It is essentially a barometer for global stability and cooperation in terms of investors and analysts worldwide right now closely monitoring such events, understanding that political stability often underpins economic confidence. A positive outcome from these talks could signal a period of reduced geopolitical tensions, potentially fostering essentially more optimistic global economic outlooks. Market sentiments, major diplomatic essentially breakthroughs can boost investor confidence across traditional and emerging markets right now, including digital assets and all those cryptocurrencies. If there's good news, then obviously the stock market will react in a positive way, with Trump essentially and Putin coming to some sort of a conclusion, some sort of a deal to end this war and put it behind them. The stock market will do well. Crypto will follow through also. Policy implementations, discussions on trade, energy, and security could lead to policy shifts impacting global supply chains and commodity prices. In other words, we could see a lower pricing regarding essentially energy prices, especially within the EU and the United Kingdom that used to rely on some Russian energy. They could once again rely on Russian energy if there's a positive outcome from this, which means we could get cheaper fuel, in other words. Currency fluctuations, changes in diplomatic ties could influence the strength and stability of national currencies, with ripple effects on international trade. The backdrop for essentially this Trump-Putin summit is a complex web of existing international relations right now. Over recent years, US and Russia ties have faced numerous challenges, ranging from geopolitical essentially conflicts to allegations of interference in democratic essentially processes. This meeting essentially in Alaska offers an opportunity to address these long-standing issues head on. Both nations have expressed a desire for improved relations with differing essentially priorities and approaches. The summit's outcomes could set a new trajectory for future interactions between Russia and the United States of America. Discussions are expected to cover a range of critical topics right now: strict stability and arms control, regional conflicts such as essentially those in Syria or essentially Ukraine, economic cooperations and potential sanction reliefs, cybersecurity concerns. The ability of both leaders to find common ground will be crucial for the broader landscape of international relations. The geopolitical impact of this summit extends far beyond the political arena, directly influencing global markets. When major powers engage in high-stakes diplomacy, the ripple effects are felt across various asset classes. A perception of increased stability or cooperation can lead to a risk-on sentiment, encouraging investments essentially in growth-oriented assets. Any signs of heightened tensions could trigger off essentially risk-off approaches, prompting investors to seek safe havens. In other words, if we get bad news from this meeting between Trump and Putin, then essentially everybody's going to hurdle away from risk assets, which in other words essentially is cryptocurrencies, and people are going to go towards stable coins or essentially safe haven assets, which are gold. Even though Bitcoin technically, by Michael Saylor's words, is a safe haven, nobody's going to be running towards it. If there's bad news, they're going to be running towards stable coins and essentially gold itself. If it's good news, then the stock market goes up, the crypto market goes up, energy prices come down. Happy days for everybody. While traditional markets like stocks, bonds, and commodities are immediately affected, the digital asset space also reacts to these macroeconomic shifts. Cryptocurrencies, increasingly seen as a global asset class, can experience essentially volatility based on changes in global economic outlooks and broader essentially geopolitical sentiments. A more stable international environment can foster greater institutional adoption and mainstream acceptance of digital assets. As the world watches the outcomes of this summit, it could pave the way for a new chapter between the US and Russia. influencing global stability and prosperity for years to come. This meeting essentially serves as a powerful reminder that political discussions at the highest levels have profound and far-reaching consequences across all sectors, including the dynamics world of digital finance. In recent essentially research paper also, the Bank of International Settlements economists outlined essentially a framework that would assign each cryptocurrency a compliance score based on its transaction histories. Putting aside essentially Putin and Russia are right now having a meeting and essentially discussing essentially matters of the war that's going on, cybersecurity issues, and so many other issues that go energy prices and so on. There's also a discussion going on right now with the Bank of International Settlements regarding cryptocurrencies. So two major discussions are happening right now. One, Putin and essentially Trump having a discussion in Alaska. Second essentially discussion that's going on right now is the Bank of International Settlements. They're actually discussing cryptocurrencies at the same time. So in a research essentially paper, Bank of International Settlements economists outlined a framework that would assign each cryptocurrency a compliance score based on its transaction history. The idea is to flag assets that have passed through wallets or protocols suspected of laundering stolen or illicit funds, lowering essentially their score or making them subject to stricter controls. Why is the Bank of International Settlements having a crypto discussion right now? At the same time, essentially Trump and Putin are meeting up. And why is there discussion regarding illicit activities and money laundering regarding cryptocurrencies? It could be possible ties to essentially Russia using USDT for evading essentially sanctions, you could possibly say. Under the proposal, national regulators could set minimum threshold scores for converting crypto into fiat currencies. If an asset score falls below that threshold, exchanges in that jurisdiction would be barred from processing this essentially transaction. Bank of International Settlements believes this approach could deteriorate essentially the flow of illicit funds while boosting trust among institutional players and the broader financial sector. The institutions maintain its cautious stance towards crypto, warning that digital assets remain volatile and could pose essentially threats to financial stability. So there are two major essentially meetings going on right now. One, Trump and Putin. Two, Bank of International Settlements. Bank of International Settlements, they're discussing cryptocurrencies and social credit systems attached to cryptocurrencies. Not attached to cryptocurrencies themselves, but essentially transactions get credit scores, like wallets will get credit scores. And if your wallet is used for too many illicit activities, your score will go down in your wallet, which means your wallet won't be trusted to do transactions further on. So, Putin and essentially Trump. Good news, market will react. The stock market will go essentially slightly up. The crypto market will react in a positive way because the good news will be the war coming to some sort of an end, energy prices coming back down, and so on. Bad news regarding this scenario, it means that the stock market is going to be slightly volatile. Crypto market is going to be slightly volatile because it follows the stock market. And people are going to run slightly towards stable coins and gold, in other words, not towards Bitcoin, even though Bitcoin is supposed to be a safe haven or risk on, essentially, or a risk of asset. It really isn't in some of these cases. Also, if nothing happens from this meeting, let's just say Putin and Trump have a sit down, no conclusions are made whatsoever, nothing happens, and they're going to extend it for another meeting, then the market is just going to constantly going sideways and essentially do its next movements based on the next news that comes out inside the market space. So there are three essential options on the table. One, good news, market reacts in a positive way. Two, bad news, market reacts in a essentially a negative way. Or three, nothing happens from this meeting and essentially the meeting gets extended to another meeting, the market will just consider going sideways, essentially react to the next news that comes out, in other words. Also, the Bank of International Settlements news regarding essentially that's going on today as well, regarding wallet transactions. That's an interesting one. If your wallet ends up doing too many illicit transactions, any sort of dodgy behavior from your wallets, then your wallet will get a lower score, which means businesses won't conduct anything with you. No business will be conducted with your wallet, in other words. Now, the Fed is what we're going to talk about next. So moving on from that meeting that's going on today. So far, nothing has come out of it regarding what's been discussed between Trump and essentially Putin. But we do have, as I said, essentially the bullet points of what is being discussed. We just don't know what the results of those discussions are yet. Now, the Fed is what we're going to talk about next. But before we talk about the Fed, let's go inside the comment section first, and then we'll go straight into the Fed news, which is actually good news coming out from the Fed. Let's see where we're at inside the comment section. We were at here. Good evening, Miles and family. Ian, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Good evening, Miles. How's things going, brother? It's going great. Callie, good to see you as well. Hello, Miles in chat. Burberry, good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? How's your day been, Miles? The CMF Lena has been great. How's your day been? Any more news from the XRP lawsuit ending? We got essentially Ripple news to go from tonight's live towards the end of the live. But regarding the case ending, no, that's pretty much ended, dusted with. Thank God for that one. But we have Ripple news to go towards the end of the live. Good evening, Miles and family. Susie, good to see you as well. How you doing? Hello, everyone again. Let's go, Thompson. How's everyone doing? I'm doing great. How you doing, Thompson? Let's go. Happy Friday, Miles. I'm so ready to see some long green candles. Let's go, Peg. Hi, Miles and CMF. Stormy, good to see you as well. How you doing? Now, the Fed. Even though Jerome Powell isn't doing rate cuts for the market space to give us some sort of positivity, but he is doing something positive for the crypto space. So maybe Trump's administration or Trump himself putting pressure on Jerome Powell or the Fed is working essentially in favor of cryptocurrencies. So the Fed has just today ended the oversight program on essentially banks regarding crypto activities. So the Federal Reserve announced today in Washington, D.C. that it has ended the program that was created back in 2023 to supervise the U.S. banks involved in cryptocurrencies and other new financial technologies. According to the press release shared, the program initially requires banks to notify the Fed before offering services such as crypto custody, stablecoin issuance, or tokenization. But now it will be replaced by the central bank's normal supervisory process. So no longer does the Fed make a final decision on regarding banks going into cryptocurrencies, offering cryptocurrency services, or even working with crypto companies. The decision follows what the Fed described as a stronger understanding of these activities, their risk, and how the banks manage them. As a result, the board is integrating the knowledge and the supervision of these activities back into the standard, essentially, supervisory process, and is reciting its 2023 supervision letter creating the program. The board said in a statement, the initiative had been introduced when regulations were trying to keep pace with the fast-moving changes in the financial technology sector. At the same time, the Fed said these novel activities might raise new legal questions and create risk not fully addressed by existing oversight. It also aimed to make sure banks engaging in crypto and fintechs were following strict rules and reporting requirements. The program comes under scrutiny from crypto industries, which saw it as essentially a way to discourage banks from serving crypto firms, which was exactly why it was set up. The Biden administration of freak shows decided to not only weaponize the SEC, Mr. Gary Gensler, to go after crypto companies, but also to weaponize the Fed and the FDIC and the OCC. Everybody was weaponized to go against the crypto companies and crypto, essentially, and banks working with crypto companies. But now, Jerome Powell's decided to walk away from this. Moreover, it's the end, and it comes shortly after President Donald Trump signed an executive order to stop what he called unfair banking practices. The order targeted guidance on programs that regulators allegedly use to push banks away from working with certain businesses based on ideologies, religion, or politics. It also mentioned Operation Choke Point, essentially an effort to, essentially, critics say, was used to cut off financial services to crypto companies and other essentially lawful businesses. The Fed's decisions to shut down the special oversight program is seen as aligning with the directive of the new financial digital sector. The central bank confirmed that activities like crypto custody will now be treated under the same rules as custody for other assets. Last month, along with other banking regulators, the Fed stated that the bank can hold digital assets for customers as long as they meet existing custody standards. Senator Cynthia Luminous also posted on social media platform X today. That's a big win for putting essentially an end to Operation Choke Point 2.0, Luminous said. The Feds essentially announces killing the targeted supervision of digital assets banking activities. There's still more to do, but this is real progress towards a level playing field for cryptocurrencies. Fed Governor Michelle Bowman, who became the vice chair for supervision earlier this year, has also called for regulators to be open to innovation inside the banking systems while maintaining safety. The board said that essentially with the knowledge gained from 2 years of monitoring crypto and fintech activities, it is confident in handling them through its usual regulatory challenges. So, crypto has pretty much got a green light from the Fed also now, which is perfect timing because, going back a few days or even a week, Ripple just applied for a banking charter license. So did Circle, and so is Paxos thinking about applying for one as well. But putting those two to side, just thinking about Ripple, this is perfect opportunity for Ripple essentially to, pass through easier on getting their banking license and their Fed account from the OCC. There is some relevance between that, because with Trump signing that executive order, it made the OCC become more friendly overnight regarding crypto companies. It made the FDIC more friendly as well. And a few days after, today, we have the Fed dropping their essentially restrictive maneuvers inside the crypto space regarding banks and cryptocurrencies, completely walking away from it. This is brilliant, honestly. Even though the man struggles to do rate cuts, Jerome Powell, at least he's done one thing in favor of cryptocurrencies, and it's quite a big thing as well, where banks and crypto can work together now freely. Now, moving on from the Fed and Jerome Powell doing something good in his life for the crypto space to the SEC chair, Paul Atkins. He's now teasing essentially private equity access for retail members. But before we go through that, let's go to the comment section first. As I said previously, this is live, just like always. If you do have any questions or statements, put it down in the comment section. More than happy to help you out. So let's see what's happening inside the comment section. Even Miles CMF, Manny, good to see you as well. How you doing, Manny? How you been? It's coming and nothing is stopping it. Facts. Let's go, Davey. Azur, good for you. Hi, Miles. I sent you a private message on X. Can you please confirm that you have received it? Most likely, I've received a call. Let me check. Yeah, I've received it. Please like, comment, and repost on X. Thank you. Facts, Peg. Let's go. If you haven't already liked and retweeted this live and you watch us on X, please like and retweet CMF members. If you watch us on YouTube, drop a like as well. If you already haven't, if you have, thank you so much. Now, SEC Chairman Paul Atkins teases private equity access for retail. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission SEC Chairman Paul Atkins signaled that the regulatory agency will work with U.S. President Donald Trump's administration to allow retail investors equal opportunities to invest in private equity. Atkins cited that recent Trump executive order to allow crypto and alternative assets and 401k retirement accounts, tax essentially sheltered retirement plans funded by individuals and their employees, as the catalyst for the effort. He also told Fox Business Today, essentially, it's not really great to have a situation where large, essentially, endowments and pension funds, like state pension funds, can be diversified in public and private markets, while the 401ks cannot. I think that's one of essentially the goals of this executive order, to direct the Department of Labor and the SEC to work together to help essentially make this a reality. However, Atkins urged caution essentially on putting the proper guardrails around alternative investments. We can't just essentially filling the gates open and essentially having investors rush in where one wants to. Everybody still has to be careful. The agency has prioritized regulating cryptocurrencies to make the US the global leader in digital assets. Paul Atkins recently said, broadening access to private equity will allow retail investors to invest in early stage essentially crypto projects and private token sales, typically reserved for accredited investors or institutional investors only. Cointelegraph reached out to the SEC for details on potential overhaul of essentially accredited investor rules, but the agency declined to comment on the matter. The SEC essentially overhauled accredited investors regulation back in 2020 to emphasize financial knowledge and skill over the net worth, broadening who could essentially qualify as accredited investor in the US. Despite this, the current regulations are prohibited and lock out retail investors from some of the investment products, according to Christopher Perkins, the president of Investor Essentially Funds from CoinFound. Also, rules exist as a form of consumer protections to shield investors from taking too much financial risk. According to the SEC, these risks essentially are compounded in private businesses that do not have to follow the same disclosure essentially requirements and may need more financial essentially to fully understand over essentially the public counterparts. Private investments, also essentially liquid and essentially contingent, could spread through the financial system through overlapping, essentially over leveraging, or essentially that spills over into the asset classes and markets during financial crisis. So the SEC is now going to be working with the Trump administration to bring that innovation essentially to the United States regarding cryptocurrencies. It's incredible that essentially we have the SEC and essentially the SEC chairman, in fact, with the Trump administration working together to bring that positiveness that we need inside the crypto space regarding essentially, especially regulations and opening doors, or you could even say opening the floodgates regarding liquidity sooner or later. Now, moving on from the SEC, brilliant news, honestly. Paul Atkins, essentially Scott Atkins, during the Trump administration, green light, amazing. The Fed chairman essentially, removing that law so banks can work with crypto companies, amazing. Now, Bitcoin's biggest Wall Street backer, as you all know, is BlackRock, but it's also essentially Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock. Well, some news has come out that Larry is going to be playing quite a big role inside of the World Economic Forum. So it is. The Wall Street backer takes the wheel at the World Economic Forum. Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, was just appointed as the co-chair of the World Economic Forum board. It's interesting that these big announcements are all happening at the same time where Trump and Putin are having a meeting. The same day, essentially, everybody's focused on Trump and Putin, which they should be, but also on the sidelines, we have the Fed removing a law for banks so they can work with crypto companies. We have the SEC mentioning they're going to be working with Trump administration. We have the Bank of International Settlements talking about cryptocurrencies and essentially rating wallet transactions. We also have the World Economic Forum today, out of all days, mentioning Larry Fink is their chosen golden boy. Larry Fink will share the role with essentially Andrea, vice chairman of the Swiss pharmaceutical giant Roche. Following essentially their appointments, Fink and Hoffman emphasized the need for more an exclusive, essentially global economy and a broader distribution of prosperity. They also expressed interest in greater collaborations with governments on shared policy goals. We remain optimistic. The forum has opportunity to help drive international collaboration in a way that not only generates prosperity, but essentially distributes it more broadly, Larry Fink essentially and Andrea Hoffman said. So if you thought it was a nightmare already that the amount of power essentially BlackRock has, well, Larry Fink has just joined the board of the World Economic Forum. As CEO of the world's largest asset manager, Larry Fink has played a major role in accelerating crypto adoption on Wall Street. He definitely has. Once a Bitcoin essentially skeptic, he has become one of its most vocal supporters. In March, Larry Fink even stated that the US dollar could lose its dominance to Bitcoin. Founded by essentially Klaus Schwab, essentially a professor of business policy, the World Economic Forum rose to prominence by convening global business and political leaders at its annual Davos conference. However, the World Economic Forum has also faced criticism before. The forum has been accused of listening regulatory capture and helping companies use money to change policy. Moreover, the Davos gathering is a popular target in many conspiracy theories, including the Great Reset, a term coined by essentially Schwab's. What is more, its founder, Klaus Schwab, was accused of essentially nepotism, financial improbability by his employees. On August 15th, the World Economic Forum reported that they found no evidence of the wrongdoing. Of course, the World Economic Forum is going to be coming out and saying there was no wrongdoing whatsoever regarding their founders. Let's just be honest with ourselves. But Larry Fink has just now been chosen to be a board member on the World Economic Forum. BlackRock has just got themselves a very comfortable seat in the World Economic Forum. Again, this is coming out, the announcement is coming out today, where everybody's extremely focused on Trump and Putin. As I said, they should be. Everybody should be very focused, essentially, on what comes out regarding the conclusion between essentially Putin and Trump. But also, today is the day that Larry Fink got a board seat at the World Economic Forum. That's quite a big news. Also, what's big news is the Fed not going after crypto companies anymore and giving the green light to banks. Also, what's good news is essentially Atkins is about to be working with the Trump administration. The SEC and Trump administration work together. It's never happened before. Also, what Larry Fink mentioned, just want to say this one thing, where he said essentially the forum has opportunity to help drive international collaboration in a way that not only generates prosperity, but distributes it more broadly. And he said some other things regarding him essentially joining the seat, which gives hints of some sort of a reset, where he essentially said we could share government policies together and be under the same roof. Now, moving on from Larry Fink getting a very comfortable seat in the World Economic Forum to essentially an enormous bet on the crypto market space, enormous bet on the crypto market space to go up. Before we talk about that, let's go to that conversation first. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions or comments, put it down in the comment section. More than happy to help you out. So let's go inside the comment section first, and then we'll go straight into the next news on the humongous bet right now that's going on in the crypto space of it going up on the upside. So let's see where we're at. Please, we're here. Thanks, Miles. I will for your reply. I'll wait for your reply. No problem. Carl, I'll reply to you after the live. Morning, Miles and CMF. Shelly, good to see you as well. How you doing? Morning. How you been? Thank you to those who reposted the live on X. You're amazing. Let's go, Peg. Happy Pisces. Good to see you as well. How you doing? Hey, Miles. How you been doing? I've been doing great, Curtis. Good to see you as well, brother. Let's go. Now, a very enormous bet has been placed on the crypto space for it to go on the upside. So here it is. Hang Lingqing, known as the Matchy Big Brother, has increased his leverage long positions in Bitcoin and Ethereum, surpassing $100 million, impacting crypto markets, according to on-chain data. $100 million plus bet has been put on for essentially Bitcoin and Ethereum to go up. If Bitcoin and Ethereum go up, then everything else also goes up as well, because we don't have regulations, full regulations still in place, which means the market will follow Bitcoin's footsteps. Which means this man has just placed a massive long position that the market is about to go on the upside. These high-stake moves by a prominent figure like Hung may lead to increased volatility and shifts in market sentiments, drawing significant attention from analysts and traders worldwide. Is his possible reasoning between essentially what's going to be happening between Trump and Putin? Possibly we could have some good news on that matter. Hung Lynch has significantly increased his crypto exchange position with over $100 million exposure to Bitcoin and Ethereum. These activities have been closely observed by analysts due to their potential impact on market dynamics. Hung, also known as the Matchy Big Brother, has executed highly leveraged long positions in crypto before, illustrating aggressive trading tactics. His history includes large-scale investments in Ethereum with notable profitability in prior trades. Hung Lynch, essentially $100 million crypto market impact. Hung's activities have caused fluctuations in ETH and Bitcoin's market valuations, with investors and analysts monitoring the impact on volatility. The scope of these bets suggests potential liquidity changes on major trading platforms. Using high leverage, his position particularly influences futures contracts, presenting both opportunities and risks. The transactions highlight complex, essentially market strategies and potential for brief volatility spikes. Hung's strategies essentially can serve as an indicator for other traders, often seen essentially as both predictive and responsive to their market sentiments. His recent actions may foreshadow upcoming shifts in cryptocurrency asset values. Now, just because Hung has put $100 million plus essentially long position on Bitcoin and Ethereum, it's not an indication for anybody to go and copy their movements. This is not financial advice in whatsoever. This is just me sharing essentially what Hung has decided to do. He is a man that has put previous aggressive bets on the market space that has actually worked out for him pretty damn well. And this new aggressive bet he's put on a long position for Bitcoin and Ethereum is over $100 million. Past traders point to volatile essential reactions in similar scenarios. As such, stakeholders remain alert to shifts essentially in regulatory landscapes and technology-driven market innovations, which may affect future positions. Monitoring continuing essentially for any regulatory responses, and Hung's leveraged position serves as a sentiment and trade signal with historical actions sometimes foreshadowing the price inflections or volatility spikes, on-chain analysis and trackers and various accounts. So a huge bet has been put on the crypto market space right now. Bitcoin, Ethereum, $100 million plus. Is the market about to go on the upside? Is that why this man has decided to put a very aggressive, high leverage position on these two assets? It could be based on essentially what Trump and Putin are going to be discussing behind closed doors and the conclusion that's going to be coming out of it. That could be one possible reason he's put that massive bet, because if it is good news, the stock market will react in a positive way, and so will the crypto market space, and Hung is about to make a lot of money. So it's completely up to you if you ever want to follow positions like that. This is not financial advice whatsoever at all. You do what you want to do, just sharing the essentially news on Hung's bets. Now, Tether is what we talk about next. Tether and Circle is what we talk about next. Tether and Circle face billions in losses right now if we get a rate cut. So some news has come out, and essentially some data has come out regarding if we get a rate cut sooner or later from Jerome Powell, from the Fed in other words, that Circle, essentially USDC and USDT, could lose billions in revenue because they are backed by US Treasuries. So if we get a rate cut, then essentially the US Treasuries they have will lose value, which means billions will be lost from both of them. That might not be a bad thing, to be fairly honest. It gives room for RLUSD to catch up a little bit. Tether and Circle could see a sharp revenue decline if US interest rates drop in the coming months. According to current analysts that are going on, the two largest stablecoin issues depend heavily on yield from interest bearing US Treasuries. He cautioned that essentially reducing rates would cut significant parts of their profits, and Circle is expected to lose hundreds of millions of dollars per year. The analyst further essentially said that the two companies might require issuing additional stablecoins to maintain their present profits. Internal estimates referred by the analysts indicate that the 50 basis point reduction would decrease gross revenue by at Circle by about $309 million annually. A 100 basis point cut reduction would bring a twofold increase, reducing $618 million and gross profit by up to $303 million. Currently, Circle receives approximately $2.54 billion a year in reserve incomes, which is supported by holdings inside the US Treasury. Any drops in the yields of these assets would directly impact its financial performance in response to its revenue risk. Circle recently introduced ARC, which we discussed about before, an open layer 1 blockchain tailored for stablecoin finance. The platform will be 100% compatible with Ethereum's virtual machine, and the native gas token will be USDC to pay transaction fees with. ARC is designed to provide that sub-second settlement and integrated stablecoin foreign exchange system that enterprise-grade compliance. Later this year, also a public testnet is planned as Circle aims to diversify beyond interest income to a fee-based revenue instead. Tether, on the other hand, has also increased its exposure to US Treasuries, with $127 billion in US Treasury bills as the second quarter of 2024. This puts the company ahead of South Korea and near Saudi Arabia in international Treasury rankings. It also holds $105.5 billion and a $21.3 billion directly or indirectly, an increase of $7 billion since the first quarter. Tether is currently ranked as 18th largest owner of US Treasuries in the world, overtaking Germany earlier this year. Impending US interest rate cuts could also strip billions from Tether and Circle's revenue streams. Both issuers appear to be positioning themselves for a future with lower returns for the treasuries of their investments. So Tether and Circle are about to be losing billions in revenue the moment we have rate cuts. As I said, it could also be seen as a positive because it gives other tokens like RLUSD some time to catch up. Now, the Fed is what we're going to talk about next again. But this time it's a perspective coming out of the Fed regarding the recent data that were released, and that this particular Fed thinks that we should be having some sort of cuts. So here it is. Fed gooseball flags concerns over raising inflation pressures. Austin Gooseball, president of the Chicago Fed, expresses concerns over the latest US PPI, which we went through data, and the CPI inflation data, which we also went through as well in the past few days, highlighting unexpected increases in core and service prices. This situation creates uncertainties for the future Fed rate discussions and market reactions. Global markets are reacting strongly to concerns over the latest US inflation data, particularly its potential to influence Federal Reserve rate cut decisions. Recent inflation data revealed unexpected upward pressures in US core and service prices, causing concerns among market participants. Austin Gooseball, the Chicago Fed president, described these developments as disrupting, impacting expectations for the future Federal Reserve actions, and Fed Gooseball warns about raising inflation pressures. Gooseball and other experts noted that the significance of sharp increases in both the PPI and CPI data, which could potentially alter future policy discussions. As the Federal Reserve assesses the latest data, there is speculation about a potential shift in policies. Market reacted quickly to the inflation data, which changes observed in rate expectations. Investors had initially anticipated a rate cut, but confidence was worn down following the new data reports. Michelle Bowman also stressed caution regarding employment data while notifying underlying inflationary trends. Austin Gooseball, president of the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, said in his own statements, the recent CPI and PPI reports show troubling strength in services and price, which may mean that the fight against inflation is not over. The cryptocurrency markets sensitive to macroeconomic indicators show potential volatility post-data releases. This reflects a historical pattern where broader economic indicators could lead to risk-off sentiments. BTC and Ethereum right now are closely monitored as potential proxies for broader market reactions on this matter. Potential also outcomes from the situation include adjustments and rate expectations impacting essentially various asset classes, including cryptocurrencies. Observers also are kneeling essentially and watching further responses from the Federal Reserve impacting global economic dynamics. Historical trends also indicate inflation affects asset values, with essentially broader economic indicators impacting markets. The cryptocurrency market shows volatility aimed essentially economic uncertainties, and analysts are closely watching BTC and Ethereum as potential proxies for how traditional markets may respond to macroeconomic shifts right now. So according to one Fed member from Chicago, essentially, he sees it as the market is essentially the battle for inflation is not over yet, and that recent data that we had from the PPI and CPI data wasn't great. But the rate cuts essentially should still be happening. However, due to those reports, his indication is the Fed might not be doing any sort of rate cuts whatsoever, which means the market space should be still remaining quite volatile at this stage. But yet, the market space could go up if there is good news from Fed and essentially from Trump and Putin discussions. Hence why I'm essentially, as I said, I'm guessing why that particular businessman has decided to put $100 million plus long position on Bitcoin and Ethereum. His possibility, I'm guessing his reasoning is that good news from essentially Putin and Trump, that's why the market is about to go on the upside. That's why he's taking such a risky position. According to the Fed, another member of the Fed, rate cuts should be happening, but that data was not great and not what essentially they wanted to hear. Now, major financial revolution declared by Putin is what we're going to go through next. So here it is. Major financial revolution essentially declared by Putin. The president of the United States declared cryptocurrencies as the biggest financial revolution since the internet, marking a significant policy shift from the White House. This declaration has significant impacts and implications for the crypto market space, potentially unlocking institutional investments and altering the regulatory landscape inside the United States. So yesterday we obviously had essentially Scott Benson coming out on news, on live news, and saying the US is only going to be holding seized assets and they're not going to be buying Bitcoin, which impacted Bitcoin quite bad, which essentially, weathered down to other cryptocurrencies, and the rest of the market reacted also negative to the news as well. It's only because we don't have regulations, which means we can't decouple from Bitcoin's footsteps, unfortunately. Now, on the other hand, today they've made some, essentially positive words. They put positive words towards cryptocurrencies. So the recent statement by Putin calling cryptocurrencies the biggest financial revolution since the internet marks a decisive policy shift. This announcement is a part of the White House strategy to strengthen American essentially leadership in digital financial technology. Involved entities include the White House, key regulatory agencies like the SEC and the CFTC, and the federal offices, all coming together for one particular thing, which is cryptocurrencies. They are also endorsing the expansion of digital asset markets, reflecting a clear change in terms of from previous stances on cryptocurrency regulations. As Janet Yellen, Secretary of the Treasury, once stated, it is vital that the government stakeholders collectively work to make progress on these recommendations. The immediate impact of these announcements is likely to be felt across financial markets, with potential essentially increases in digital asset values, renowned essentially also interest and investments, and essentially anticipated as barriers to institutional participation are lowered. This pivot has financial, political, and social implications. Key assets such as essentially Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, and stablecoins may see institutional adoption and legitimacy on that matter. Policy clarity could further incentivize investors to engage with the crypto market space. The shift in US policy essentially is reminiscent of past financial reforms and initiatives. Regulatory clarity is expected to bolster investments right now and innovation inside the blockchain and crypto sectors. This new environment might attract developers to focus on compliance-oriented projects, and potential outcomes include increased institutional capital flows and regulatory collaborations, replacing earlier essentially enforcement strategies. Data also suggests that policy changes have historically led to surges in essentially market activities with implications for the global crypto industry. So, The White House decided to put out a positive, essentially, statement on cryptocurrencies today, also out of all days. Decided to put a positive statement on cryptocurrencies regarding essentially cryptocurrencies changing the world, comparing essentially cryptocurrencies to the beginning of the internet, and stating that essentially the SEC, the CFTC, federal agencies, the White House, they are all working together collectively to bring that innovation towards the United States. This is great news, to be fairly honest, compared to what was essentially said on live news yesterday regarding essentially Benson going on live news and saying nobody's buying Bitcoin from the US government, we're not buying it, only seized assets, to now stating these positive things in general about the crypto space is good to hear. Now, moving away from essentially what was discussed regarding the White House to Mike Novoscott. Mike Novoscott, the biggest advocate for Bitcoin, you could pretty much say, alongside Michael Saylor, has decided to do something unusual, which is move away from Bitcoin mining, which most people would have never seen coming, and go towards AI. And what I mean by that is he's going to be turning one of the biggest Bitcoin mining corporations, essentially, into an AI data center. I would have to say interesting timing now that the US government said they're not buying Bitcoin. Is that the reason why Mike Novoscott decided to alter towards AI data infrastructure and close down his Bitcoin mining corporation? So here it is. Galaxy Digital has secured $1.4 billion in debt financing to overhaul its Halos Bitcoin mining site in Texas into a high-capacity data center for artificial intelligence workloads under a 15-year lease with essentially CoreWeave. The financing, essentially arranged by Deutsche Bank, will cover up to about 80% of the first phase construction cost, with Galaxy adding $350 million in equity. The loan, maturing in August 2028, is secured by all assets tied to Helios. The project's initial essentially bulldozed. CoreWeave has begun essentially as a crypto miner before pivoting towards cloud-based GPU services in 2019, is the sole AI in high-performance computing HPC tenant. The firm will take up essentially up to 800 megawatts of capacity at Halos, and with operations slated to begin in early 2026, Galaxy estimates the agreement will generate more than $1 billion in annually once fully utilized. This project is a key step in expanding beyond crypto and into the broader AI infrastructure space, Galaxy Digital CEO Mike Novoscott said. I would just like to edit his statement because the CEO of Galaxy Digital shouldn't have said, essentially, that this project is key step in expanding beyond crypto. No. What he's actually doing is not expanding beyond crypto. He's actually expanding beyond Bitcoin and going towards data centers for AI, because that is more profitable for him than having a Bitcoin mining corporation. Also, interesting timing, as I said on announcement. The US comes out yesterday on live news, we're not buying Bitcoin. Today, Mike Novoscott, one of the biggest Bitcoin advocates, comes out and goes, yeah, we're going to close down one of our biggest mining centers in Texas and turning it into an AI data infrastructure. Galaxy acquired Halos for Argo blockchain for $100 million back in 2022. Originally, essentially, to bolster its Bitcoin mining operations. The company has since signed an additional lease with CoreWeave for its site's second phase, which could eventually expand to a total capacity of 3.5 gigawatts, leaving about 2.7 gigawatts available for other customers. The move reflects a wider trend among Bitcoin miners, shifting infrastructure towards AI computing, which is true. It's not only Mike Novoscott that's moving away from essentially Bitcoin mining. It's not only him that's moving away from Bitcoin mining. It's also other Bitcoin miners are now setting up AI data infrastructures in their own essentially warehouses, because AI data infrastructure makes a lot more money for them than having a Bitcoin mining corporation, because it's so costly having a Bitcoin mining corporation compared to having an AI data infrastructure. Galaxy CoreWeave itself has been essentially been rapidly expanding, including a $9 billion all-stock deal in July to essentially acquire Minor Core Scientific. Galaxy, the dual listed on NASDAQ and essentially Toronto Stock Exchange, saw its shares down 7% at $36 essentially today. The firm has also revealed plans to tokenize its equity. Earlier in July, Galaxy Digital essentially offloaded more than 80,000 bitcoins worth over $9 billion at current prices. So not only has essentially the CEO of Galaxy Digital decided to close down one of his biggest Bitcoin manufacturers in Texas and turn it into an AI data center, he's also decided to sell essentially in July he sold over 80,000 essentially of his Bitcoin, about $9 billion. The stash traces back to dormant wallets believed to be from the early Satoshi era. In mid-July, the whale sent two large batches, 40,000 and essentially 40,010 bitcoins and 40,191 bitcoins to Galaxy Digital. This is very important because a while ago, or even a long time ago, I said that these dormant wallets essentially wallets that are opening up suddenly. You see it on the news. Bitcoin wallet from Satoshi era suddenly turns on, makes a transfer. And people were saying, oh, these are like crypto whales that got in early at the early stages. And I said, it could also be corporations. We don't know who the wallets belong to. It could be corporations. It could be government entities that had a hand since day one in Bitcoin. It could be anyone. And then you fast forward to the day where one of those humongous wallets was actually owned by Galaxy Digital. In the early days of Satoshi's era, Galaxy Digital was one of those wallets, which is why essentially one of those wallets transferred 40,010 bitcoins to Galaxy Digital, and another Satoshi era wallet transferred over 40,191 bitcoins to Galaxy Digital. Since then, on-chain analysis say Galaxy has moved around 61,691 BTC from the original 80,201 Bitcoin to exchanges, likely for liquidation. The identity of the client wasn't disclosed, but blockchain data shows that the Bitcoin was moved from a long essentially dormant wallet earlier this month. Look on Chain, a crypto analyst firm, reported that 80,009 Bitcoins was sent to Galaxy between July 16th and 17th, followed by a series of transfers to exchanges totaling around 30,000 Bitcoins. So, one of Bitcoin's biggest advocates decides to close down one of his Bitcoin factories, turn into a data center. $80,000, essentially 80,000 worth of Bitcoins, about $9 billion of Bitcoins was sold. All of this happens, the news announcements all come out straight after Scott going on live news saying the US government is not buying Bitcoin. And also, before the Ripple case closed, just on the day, just a few hours before, essentially even a day before, Mike Novoscott increased his position on XRP. And on the topic of XRP, Ripple's CTO explains how the XRP ledger and the ILP will facilitate seamless payments, and how that the XRP ledger is the only asset, essentially, for, or the only blockchain for finance when it comes to institutions. So here it is. Ripple CTO David Schwartz has explained how parties can create trust and relationships on XRP ledger using the ledger's elements, including XRP and ILP. In a recent thread on X, the Ripple executive noted why he expects institutions to explore the platform's resources for their benefits. This is David Schwartz telling everybody why institutions are looking towards the XRP ledger. According to David Schwartz, what Ripple has provided through the XRP ledger was the original vision for a trust line, which dates back to 2004, and Ryan Frodger's work. He considers it essentially a core concept behind the ILP and sees it as a huge win for everyone. Despite acknowledging the potential of trust in solutions and their current preferences over cryptocurrencies, the Ripple CTO noted that the use of cryptocurrencies today are a tiny fraction of what they could be. According to him, distributed ledgers providing better solutions even for problems that aren't solved best with cryptocurrencies will make blockchain more useful for everyone. In the meantime, David Schwartz highlighted also Ripple's goals of enabling digital assets that are without counterparties and jurisdictions. According to David Schwartz, such cryptocurrencies are essentially censorship resistant that will only apply where they provide advantage, especially in settling transactions across different ecosystems. I just want to repeat that one more time for everyone so they can have a clear understanding of something I said a long time ago. I said, as everybody remembers, about 3 years ago I said this. I said, Swift's downfall is not that it's slow and expensive, because the world has been using that payment system for the longest time. I said Swift's downfall is that it goes around essentially and sanctions countries. It acts like a political tool than a messaging tool or a payment service. I said that's its downfall. I said Swift could partner up with anybody. It could partner up with Ethereum, with Chainlink, with AVAX, with Ton, with Solana, with Cardano, with HBAR, and it still wouldn't fix their reputation. It still wouldn't fix their relationship with other countries, because every country is scared that one day down the line, Swift is just going to sanction them. Well, listen to what David Schwartz said just one more time. According to David Schwartz, such cryptocurrencies like XRP are censorship resistant. Censorship resistant is what XRP is. As in other words, the XRP ledger is censorship resistant and would apply where essentially they provide an advantage, especially in settling transactions across different ecosystems. Using examples, Schwartz explained how parties involved in a transaction can use Ripple's XRP ledger and ILP to execute seamless transactions across independent payment networks. According to David Schwartz, XRP ledger or the ILP would facilitate this discovery, coding payments, essentially autonomously, and accounting. For context, XRP ledger is Ripple's decentralized open source blockchain, while also the Interledger Protocol ILP is an open protocol suite designed to facilitate the seamless transfer of value across different payment networks. Both traditional and blockchain based, essentially. Ripple followers interacting with David Schwartz appeared impressed with his explanation and the potential of a network technology. They see it as an innovation that could revolutionize the payment industry and simplify how users exchange values in the financial sector. David Joel Schwartz, the Chief Technology Officer of Ripple, continues to stay firm on his position that XRP is not meant to function as a bank account for Ripple, but rather as a straight weapon in the company's mission to improve global payments. Just to repeat that one more time. David Schwartz, the Chief Technology Officer of Ripple, continues to stay firm on his opinion that XRP is not meant to function as a bank account for Ripple, but rather as a straight weapon in the company's mission to improve global payments. So not only has David Schwartz essentially just reaffirmed essentially what the position that we all assume that where XRP stands, or the XRP ledger, but also mentioning essentially regarding the censorship of resistance, which is Swift's biggest downfall. I also want to essentially point out one more thing regarding XRP and Ripple that's going around right now on X, which is people are starting to compare Chainlink to XRP, and people are saying Chainlink is better than XRP. First of all, to the influencers on X that typically sell their souls for $1,000. Pathetic. Honestly, for all the influencers that sell their souls every week for a different crypto project, it's pathetic. You have no morals. Second of all, how in the hell are you comparing XRP to Chainlink? Not throwing shade on Chainlink whatsoever. I hold the asset as well. It's a brilliant asset, but it cannot be compared to XRP, not even by 1%. Just a point of perspective, XRP went through war. It literally went through war. Sued by the SEC, remained in the top 10, went through bull markets, didn't move from the top 10 position. Went through bear markets, went down, still being sued by the SEC, didn't move from the top 10 position. Signed contracts globally while being sued by the SEC, still remained top 10. Got licensings globally, still remained top 10 while being sued by the SEC. Let's just go back to Chainlink for a second. Didn't get sued by the SEC, could barely break through the top 12. Never mind top 10 or top 5 or top 3. While essentially XRP was going through war and coming out the other side winning and still remaining top 10 and top 5, now top 3, Chainlink was walking past, singing and dancing, and it still couldn't break through the top 10 or top 5 or top 3. So for anybody out there inside the crypto space that's comparing Chainlink to XRP, please don't. It's embarrassing. You're embarrassing yourself and your intelligence and everybody else that follows you. You're an embarrassment to yourself, honestly. Just want to put that out there because I've seen people start posting essentially Chainlink and XRP. Chainlink is better than XRP. How in the hell is it better than XRP? Just comparing what XRP went through to get to where it is, comparing to what Chainlink essentially did to get through. Chainlink literally walked, sang, and danced through, and it still couldn't break top 10 or top 5 or top 3. Whilst not being sued, getting licensings, expanding its range, partnering with Swift. Chainlink was able to partner with Swift, and it still couldn't break through the top 10 or top 5 or top 3. So I don't know who the hell is comparing Chainlink to XRP. It's embarrassing. Just stop it. And we all know you sold your soul for $1,000 because that's how much companies pay. For all the influencers that jump on bandwagons of crypto projects every week, we know for a fact that you get paid between $1,000 to $5,000 or $5,000 to $10,000, $10,000 to $25,000 max. You would get paid. So just stop comparing it. Chainlink, XRP, they're not even in the same category to be compared. It's like comparing a Rolls Royce to a skateboard. Honestly, it's literally comparing a Rolls Royce to a skateboard. It's just not even in the same category to be compared with. In terms of the financial sector especially, it's not even on the list. Now, putting that to one side, we have also, unfortunately, reached the endings of tonight's live. There wasn't much news today, but it was a lot of good news today, to be fairly honest, regarding the Fed removing essentially their shackles from the banks so they can work with crypto companies. So it seems like Trump's executive order is working. Regarding essentially Atkins, the SEC chairman, coming out essentially and stating that they're working with the White House right now, which is incredible. Regarding the White House coming out and saying they're working with the SEC, the CFTC, and federal agencies to bring innovation inside the United States. Also regarding essentially Larry Fink getting a seat in the Bank of International Settlements, that's an interesting one today. And regarding essentially Trump and Putin, let's see what the discussions are going to be between these two people. Is it going to be good news? Is it going to be bad news? So far, there's one position placed. There's over $100 million on a long position on Bitcoin Ethereum for the market to go up. So on that note, we have reached the endings of tonight's live. On tonight's live, as I said, we discussed about those topics, which some of them are incredibly important topics. And this was the CMF Live. This was episode 356 of the CMF Live. The CMF stands for Crypto Miles Family. My name is Miles. You can tune to this live Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. London time onwards. Honestly, I hope every single one of you, as always, have an amazing weekend. And I will be seeing all of you back on Monday, 10 p.m. London time, as usual, for episode 357 of the CMF Live. Before we do go, let's go to the comment section first. And as always, the disclaimer of this live is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. And thank you so much to everybody from the CMF who has liked and retweeted this live. If you're watching this on X right now, if you watch this on YouTube, thank you so much for liking the live as well. If you haven't, CMF members, liked or retweeted this live, please like and please retweet this live. Also, if you followed and subscribed to me during this live, thank you so much for subscribing and welcome to the CMF. Let's go to that comment section before we do leave, just in case we didn't miss any questions. They all hold XRP. They just don't want to admit to it. I agree 100%. Bitcoin maxes are going to be sick. I agree 100%. You should clip this part for the short video about Chainlink versus XRP. Yes, definitely, Burberry. Let alone the partnership Ripple has. Facts. Thanks, Miles. Have a great weekend, everyone. Let's go Stormy. Let's go Crypto Don. Night Miles and CMF. Let's go Pablo. I'll take the walls. Let's go Susie. Davey, let's go. See you on Monday, same time as usual. Thank you, Miles, for an interesting live. See you on Monday. Joe, see you on Monday, same time as usual. Thanks, Miles. for your remarkable explanation. Please answer my message that I left on X. I definitely will call. Good night, Miles, and family. Great live. Many thanks. See you on Monday. Ian, see you on Monday. Same time as usual. I sold my skateboard for XRP. Enjoy your weekend, Miles and CMF. Much appreciated. Shelly, let's go. See you on Monday as well. Same time as usual. Have a great night, brother. You too, brother. Let's go. Carl, see you on Monday. Same time as usual. Thank you, Miles and CMF. Have a great weekend. See you on Monday. Mike, see you on Monday. Same time as usual, brother. Thanks, Miles. Have a good weekend, CMF. See you on Monday. Or see you on Monday, same time as usual as well. Good night, Miles, and all CMF. Great live and news. JP, let's go. See you on Monday, same time as usual, brother. Miles, see you on Monday. Good night, bro. Let's go, funky brother. See you on Monday, same time as usual. We appreciate you, Miles. Enjoy your weekend. All. Let's go, Lena. See you on Monday, same time as usual. Everybody, have a fantastic weekend. Let's go, JP. Lena, let's go. See you on Monday, same time as usual. Have a great weekend. JP, see you on Monday. Have a great weekend as well. Same bat time, same bat channel. Let's go, Burberry. See you on Monday. Good night, Miles. God bless. Let's go, Cali. I will see everybody on Monday, same time as usual, 10 p.m. London time onwards. Everybody have a great weekend. See you back on Monday. Like, comment, retweet, subscribe, follow if you already haven't. If you have, thank you so much. Love you all. See you on Monday, same time as usual, 10 p.m.